Hello and welcome back to another chapter of Heroes and Hermits by Algonator on AO3. Chapter 2. Are you feeling what I'm feeling? People could be so rude at times. Scar did not expect such blatant disrespect when it comes from a man of the law. First, they barge into his room, wake him up, and then accuse him of lying about his own name? Well, technically, my name is Good Time with Scar on paper, but that's because of a mishap. It was supposed to say times, as in multiple good times, not just one. It's like glasses, you know? If you called them glass, it's a totally different story. But imagine you ordered glasses from a store and they gave you a glass instead because in their documents they've misspelled it. Kind of like that. So, yes, just call me Scar. It was a silly situation, really. He was woken up by some teenagers screaming around him, stealing away his perfectly fine nap time like jelly at 5 a.m. when she suddenly decided it was time for food. Then, after the screaming was done, he was lifted and carried to some weird skyscraper, where they put him in a medical room, which was apparently located in a school. A skyscraper school. That's a cool concept. Lots of space for kids to run around, but the building itself was a bit bland in Scar's opinion. He was kind of dizzy while someone carried him inside. Not dizzy enough to be distracted from the shimmering vertical expanse of glass this building was. And now a police officer came into his room, together with an old lady and a girl who was a student here. The police guy asked her where they found him, scribbling something in his notebook, then turned to interrogate Scar. It wasn't going great because they are yet to move on from a simple, "What is your name?" Scar was starting to suspect this guy was horrible at his job. "So there's no family name in it. And I'm supposed to write it all as one word?" asked the guy again. "Yes, but capitalize each part." "How do I spell it in katakana?" Well, I can write it in English for you." They've been on this topic for a while, neither of them knowing how to deal with the name problem. Scar was told that everyone in this country had at least two parts in their name, like Mumbo Jumbo and Joe Hills, thought Scar. It was normal, of course, but the whole country? That was some dedication to uniformity. Perhaps it was convenient for them. Scar certainly thought the name system at home wasn't ideal. Who thought of having a character limit would benefit anyone? Because of this silly bureaucracy, he was stuck with only one good time in his name instead of several. This school had an English teacher who was called upon for help a few minutes later. While they waited for the teacher to arrive, Scar suddenly realized that, somehow, he could understand these Japanese people. And they could understand him. And he was certain he did not use his magic. Yet, anyway. What a curious phenomena. Was it the server plug-in or the work of magic? "Who in here is in need of some English master help?" came a shout from behind the door, making Scar wince. Ouch. Then a man with vertical yellow hair came in, wearing not so teacher-appropriate attire. He looked like he came straight from a rock concert, but his appearance made Scar smile. After all, this guy looked like a much more approachable person, with a bright smile and an upbeat, energetic tone to his voice. It took some time to figure things out, and after tons of discussions about spelling, capitalization, and alphabets, it was finally time for a second question. "What were you doing prior to appearing here?" asked the cop, whose name Scar had already forgotten. It would be awkward to ask now, and it didn't seem important. But he did envy admins and their abilities to see things without having to look at a communicator. Good question, sir. Scar had been thinking about it prior to the officer's arrival. But I'm afraid I can't say for sure. I think I was meeting with my friends. We had a meeting. No, not a meeting. Anyway, I was with others, and then it was like, dark, and then BAM! I was falling. My elytra weren't on me, and, well, you know how it ends. It was a nasty fall, and his back still hurt like heck. The lady was nice enough to use her magic trick to heal him, but the pain still lingered on. On top of it, he could feel a drag of exhaustion on his body that wasn't there before. Could be a side effect, or the lady wasn't very good with her spell. Elytra? Elaborate, please? There was scribbling of pen on paper again, while the officer was frowning and looking down at his writing. Scar understood his confusion, but couldn't help with it much. He could tell plenty about Elytra if this guy didn't know about it. This world appeared to be very different from Hermitcraft. So it might be that they did not have the same items or their end was inaccessible. Oh, you don't know about them? Elytra are wings that you strap to your back to fly. More like glide, actually, because you need rockets to fly up or speed up. We get them in the end from End City ships, but I usually end up buying more of them from shops because I tend to die a lot, and I really don't trust my balance on those tricky end islands in the void below. Plunk, and you're gone! There was a long pause there, making Scar feel rather uncomfortable. Everyone was staring at him, even the teacher guy, the guy was staring through his yellow glasses, and Scar could feel chills on his skin from that. He had to admit it's been a while since he'd last been away from Hermitcraft. Being surrounded by strangers felt icky. Right, finally said the teacher whose name Scar didn't catch too, despite this guy's loud voice. I have classes to teach, and Miss Kendo, you should hurry up to your classroom as well. The girl did not protest, leaving together with the teacher. I'm not sure what you've meant to say, sir. Perhaps you confused some words? I'm not sure that you are lying, but I have to make sure. What did you mean by end city ships and dying? Oh boy. That sure is a different world out there. Such simple things should need explaining. And Scar felt like an alien already. He had to take a deep breath to avoid letting out a pained whine. He accidentally choked on his own saliva and coughed to clean his throat. Ugh. Man, it was turning out to be a lot more of a complicated story than he originally thought. Where was he? Where were his friends if he ended up here? Scar knew this place was different from the beginning. He could feel it with his whole being. The magic was gone. The air smelled stuffy and weird, like he was near a ton of factories collected in one place. And now he found out that this world did not have dimensions like the end and the nether? If it was just the overworld, how do they get all the resources? How did people live without a elytra to carry them places? He could never see some. He could see some potion bottles and medicine on a table near his bed. You need blaze rods for these. He hoped he was not alone here. It was terrible to be alone, and he could feel the sharp prickling tension in his heart from just imagining being stuck here. He felt physical pain from being abandoned like that, being lost. Surely Exuma would rescue him and bring him back home. Scar did not trust himself to find a way back, not in this condition. Catching his own shaky hand, he tried to calm down his trembling, shivering. It was hard to breathe, the prickling pain for growing harder to ignore. Of course it was hard to breathe with his polluted air in his weak lungs. Damn, his lungs were hurting now. His heart, his chest, his whole body protested the lack of magic and the separation from his home. The stress, the fear. Zuma always understood. On Hermitcraft, Scar didn't feel this pressure. There weren't any strangers there, no matter what. Scar knew Exuma would show up when they were needed and help with his pain. His own magic was not meant for healing or anything generally helpful. He could use it to build things super fast. He could pull pranks, make deals, and more, but not help himself. Ugh. How he wished someone was here with him. Scar preferred to forget how horrible loneliness could get. The bed he was laying on was too cold. People kept staring at him. There was a cold draft coming from the open window near his bed. Everything was too white and too bright. Wait, what was he doing here? Scar felt tears building up in his eyes and wiped his eyes with the sleeve of his shirt. He was offered to change his clothes earlier, but his pack was hurting too much to do so, and his suit was the only familiar sight in this foreign world. His hat was laying at a nightstand near the bed, contrasting on a white background. He heard people talking, but could not concentrate on their voices. They were muffled and distant, and he would much rather pay attention to his arm, to his communicator attached to it. His comm, covered in scratches, but still working. His comm, with which he could contact others. Finally, one good thing. The grounding reminder of the connection he still had to his friends pulled Scar out of his current streak of misery, and he quickly pulled himself together. Yes, he was lost, and other hermits weren't here, but there were some good people near him. They healed him, gave him a bed and a glass of water, tried to identify him and sent him home. He doubted they could, honestly. With how different their world was from other servers he's been on, they must be on the other side of the universe, if not in a completely new one. Wasn't that exciting? Everything would be so new and interesting to him. There must be so much to learn here. And he shouldn't doubt Exuma. He will be found. His admin was so caring and attentive. No way they would let Scar be lost forever. And Grian would for sure tear world borders apart to reach him. And Cub would search and search until they would be back together. The hermits always stuck together, no distance or time apart. When his breathing started to become easier and steadier, Scar could honestly pat himself on the back for not breaking down in front of strangers. How would he charm them with his smile and make new friends while crying? No. It's not hermit-like of him to give up. It eventually took him a while to come back to his senses. Some nice nurse brought him dinner and painkillers, and Scar made sure to thank her for it. Call it practice for the big guys. Everyone who'd been here previously left a long time ago. She told him it was a bit past noon and everyone here was involved in the school's daily work and needed to be at their work. She also told him that the officer was kicked out with a promise that they would talk later. Luckily, his charm worked wonderfully, though he felt a little rusty with it. The nurse was so nice and talkative, sharing bits and pieces of her life with him while they were drinking tea together. There was so much to Japan that Scar was excited to hear. She told him of big cities and nature on this island, stories of constant opposition between villains and heroes. From her, he learned that he was at UA High School for Heroes. That was pretty cool, in his opinion. Superheroes were pretty hot guys. And girls. And all sorts of cool, actually. Next, seeing how well his charm was working, he made a new move. He asked if someone else like him appeared recently. If, maybe by chance, some other very attractive person who knew nothing about anything could have happened to fall from the skies. The answer did surprise him. Someone did! There was someone in the room next door, although she didn't know much. She described him as a guy in his mid-20s to 30s with brown hair and a kind voice. She never mentioned any standout details like dog ears or a cybernetic eye, but there were still few people on Hermitcraft fitting that description. Even Scar belonged to that type of guy. And so he let her go, reminding her that she had a job to do. Now, feeling better, Scar focused on his magic. There was hesitation in using it, of course. With no admin to limit his powers, and no friends by his side to ground him, he would slip up and let his nature take over. Then it would be quite an inconvenience. Brawley would antagonize his rescuers while not in control of his power. He could not let that happen. He was in charge of his magic, not the other way around. He used to be a full-on wizard after all, and now with his big hat, he could just be as good. Using magic crystals was not the same as using Vex magic, but Scar had to do something. When he collected his thoughts and was already prepared to cast a spell, there were footsteps in the corridor. Fast and heavy, but they sounded like someone was walking barefoot. The door opened. Immediately, Scar could smell redstone and caffeine. He could see a familiar smiling face with round cheeks and heavy eye bags. Impulse was frozen in the door was all for but a second before he ran in, making Scar jump in his bed with a surprised shout. As he then was tackled and hugged so tightly, his back started to protest. He ignored it in favor of a familiar smell of amethyst in Impulse's hair. Sugar and gemstones, a bit of nether, and a bit of shampoo. And some of that ever-present warmth. He wasn't cold anymore, and nothing was too alien around him. It truly felt like home with one of his friends finally by his side. But he did have to push Impulse away when it got too uncomfortable to be lowered back so much. So they sat up, but never let go of each other. With Impulse's hands squeezing his, Impulse's nails were stained with redstone, and there were fresh, tiny cuts on his arm. Someone must have ran into one of the cats of boredom. Hey there, pal, how's it going? There was this kind voice, always full of positivity. Scar always struggled with his own positivity, but this aura of good friendly vibes was infectious. Perhaps he subconsciously felt it through the wall, and thanks to it, he managed to pull himself out of a panic attack. Impulse just had that presence to him, steady and comforting. Well, good gentlemen, apart from being stranded, it's fine now that you're here. Why run in such a rush? Missed me? Yeah. Impulse giggled quietly and continued. I was talking to the principal of the school we're in, and he told me they found you, and I might have overreacted. You know how it happens. And right at that moment, Scar saw more people walk in through the opened door. Scar had to move and turn in bed to put his back on the pillow to see them properly. Impulse moved too, rolling across the bed, and Scar's leg to sit on the opposite side. That way, they were close to each other, but could see those who came in. There was a white creature in a business suit, and Scar couldn't tell what that creature was. They were cute, tiny and fluffy, both with a gnarly-looking scar going through one of their eyes. Following the cute fella came in the old doctor lady from earlier, and a tall, muscular man who looked pretty intimidating with his serious expression. This time, talking came easier for Scar. Everyone introduced themselves, and he almost laughed when they told him they were all heroes. Like, even Nezu, the mouse guy, he was the principal of a hero school and a pro hero. How weird were standards for being a hero in this world? Not that Scar doubted Nezu's people rescue skills, not at all. But being a principal of a school and a superhero, a pro hero, at the same time must be pretty tough. I'm glad you two are reunited, said Nezu as he climbed up Vlad King's shoulders. It made sense. It was easier to see him that way. But if I may come back to the topic of your arrival here, can you tell us more about where you're from? With renewed confidence, Scar was the first to start answering. It depends. It really depends on your willingness to listen, my dear friends. Can you just, put aside your more suspicious side and listen to our little story? He fixed his hair, slicking it back, away from his eyes. In business deals, eye contact was essential, after all, and he wanted everything to go smoothly. It starts in another world. We probably got here through a portal or some weird spell from our home called Hermitcraft to your home of Japan. You follow? He asked when faced with confused looks. From Recovery Girl and Vlad King, Nezu looked much more intrigued, but perhaps it was just a side effect of his mouse face conveying emotions differently. And it was inconvenient for Scar, who relies on motions in his tactics. He would have to tread with caution around this principal guy, and his hard-to-read face. So our home is very much a different world, if not a universe. We've talked to some of your folks here, and also, I've come to this conclusion from my perception of this reality. It just, how do I put it, feels different to me. That is, Impulse? He looked to his arm left where Impulse was sitting, and the other hermit nodded. Impulse added, I feel it too. And when I woke up in this place, it gave me impression of those TV show hospitals we never see at home. The air is not like home at all. People do things in other ways, and well, don't do things we expect. Like, I was totally expecting an admin to show up and kick us out, but you guys never mentioned having one at all. And when the police guy came, he said that Japan has a government? I mean, I know some servers do have governments, but I don't really know how they work. Yeah, like that. Yes, Scar remembered that well from previous seasons. Both his time at Area 77 and his time as a mayor were spent fighting Impulse. Angry and Scar listened along, making mental notes to ask Impulse about details later. If the police talked to them both, they better have a uniform plan of action. Not like Scar had lied or anything. Goodness, no. But in a foreign land wasn't inherently dangerous. Better be ready. Wait, an admin? Administrator? Can you tell me what kind of role does an administrator play in your world? Asked Nezu. Oh no, don't call them administrators. That's like very official and scary. You know, you would be less scared if the admin came to check up on you than of the administrator who came to assess your... Wait, I don't even know a long scary word to choose. He started whispering in the end. Functioning and livelihood. He made another pause to swipe some loose hairs out of his eyes. Anyway, they take care of everyone under their protection and maintain order. So imagine a government, but with only one person to avoid any corruption or cheating. There are very big servers with tons of people in them at the same time, so these guys have multiple admins. But most of big worlds like that are not for permanent living. Everyone lives in smaller groups. Like we do on Hermitcraft, added Impulse with a grin. There are more than 20 of us with our head admin, but because we are all a close group, our admin trusts us enough that they gave some of our friends admin access. They help with mundane tasks to ease up the workload while the main admin deals with... What do they deal with? Border protection and bug fixes. Nezu looked at them attentively. His dark eyes were kind of creeping Scar out. Obviously, the principal would be a very smart person. While most stared in confusion and shock, Nezu was calm. Not pretend calm. Really, this guy was very put together. Of course, Scar hoped to get him on their side, if not for his smarts and simply because he was so fluffy and huggable. Scar loved all the cute creatures of the world. It would be a shame if he had to eliminate such a cute obstacle. Not that Nezu proved himself an obstacle yet. For now, he seemed polite and welcoming. What you describe sounds like an internet surfer, like in those online games, not so much as an entire world, he said finally, while Vlad King under him shifted and crossed his arms. I find it hard to believe that one guy could take care of a whole planet, even with help. Sounds too fake for me, agreed Vlad King. But you say there's around 20 of you lots? So it's more than a classroom full of people. Kids can be hard to manage, but adults are rarely easier. I had to deal with parent assemblies and hero team up. Such a hassle. Impulse shrugged with a neutral expression, not really wanting to argue. It's your right to not believe. Well, you told me you are a hero, and it's my problem if I believe you or not. And you're absolutely right about it being a pain to try to work as a large group. By gods, don't tell me all these people are about to show up on our doorstep. Black King sighed, rubbing his nose and shaking his head. There was a short debate. Recovery Girl insisted that they all would qualify as refugees and wouldn't have to stay on the streets. And Vlad King called them a security hazard. Principal Nezu listened to both, but did not agree with either side. Scar held Impulse's hand throughout the whole discussion. They both understood that they wouldn't be believed to 100%, but it still hurt. These people had entirely different lives and experiences. How could they command what was right and true? And that was exactly what Scar said to them in the end, cutting the argument short. He also added, if you want proof and information, help us then. Help us find our friends who might be stuck here and lost while we share more. I don't know how many of us could be stuck here. We can make a deal with you, helping us in exchange for us helping you. You're all heroic, right? Wouldn't be very heroic of you to just send us away in a world we don't know. The deal was discussed with Nezu when others left to their duties. There was some person with whom he wanted the Hermits to talk to. He said that they might sign a deal after that. For now, Scar bargained to get them situated in the same room and get Impulse's belongings back. Nezu made a call and they agreed to hold a meeting with other people involved in the evening, after classes were over. For now, they were given permission to roam freely within the school building and backyard, but stay away from places where they can be spotted by outsiders. It took a couple hours to get themselves back in shape, to clean their clothes, to shower, to try to use the communicators, to eat one more time, and to have Scar's back pain calmed down with massage. They succeeded in most of that. Their comms were working, but not fully functional. Scar had no understanding of their inner workings, and while Impulse did his best to explain it, All he really understands is that there are too many people on the server and that lags the system. Impulse, the genius he was, managed to turn off the part of the system on both devices and even sent a few messages between each other. Not in the main chat though, because it turned off as well due to the overload. I can't even imagine how many people would have to be on here to down the system so much. The number must be in the millions, if not more. He sounded cheerful despite everything. Impulse was intrigued by this new discovery and wondered, what else could this world be hiding? He already saw familiar smartphones and watches, clocks on the wall and medical equipment, but this talk of quirks, superpowers, brought a whole new layer to it. He saw Vlad King's costume and wondered, how crazy was technology here? He will for sure investigate it later. Maybe do some experiments. He wasn't afraid to try new things. And there was so much here. New people, new laws of physics, new rules, new everything, all available behind this roadblock of an evening meeting. Scar was a good person to have with him in this situation. He was good with words and people, and terrifyingly good at making deals. Endeavor Agency was busy as usual, with interns, sidekicks, and general workers running around during evening hours. Finishing the day shift, Endeavor himself was back at the agency dealing with his 3 interns, who couldn't focus today at all. Midoriya kept fidgeting around as if infecting the other 2 with this air of anxiousness as the day went on. There were some guys found in front of 1B dorms today, Endeavor heard him saying to his classmates, and people are sure that they are still there, in the medical ring. Just some random people dropped from the sky. UA must have given up their impenetrable barrier system if someone managed to sneak in. It made Endeavor doubt what Nezu had in mind. Was this a villain attack or some sneaky move on the principal's part? Perhaps he should bring this up to the principal. The son of Endeavor couldn't attend a faulty, shady school. All he wanted was to slap his work-study students back to work. But he understood. He learned to keep himself softer around them. They were still kids, after all. It was one thing out there in the city, running around, fighting, rescuing, and patrolling. It was a different situation back at the agency. In general safety. And maybe if he went easier on them this evening, they would come back more eager the next day, deal with that intruder news, and focus on their work. He came to a decision to dismiss them earlier today, let the kids rest. The book he was advised to read said not to put underdeveloped minds under too much stress all at once. While past Endeavor wouldn't have wasted his time on a cheap parenting book, his life had changed. He tried to change. The kids left his agency with hesitation this evening, but they quickly switched to chatting about intruders and who they might be. He watched them leave through the window. Midoriya was chatting excitedly, walking on the right. Bakugo was slouching. He was the only one to protest their early dismissal. And Shoto was walking in between the 2, smiling. And that is the end of Chapter 2.